Crazy.
tired.
God,
Yeah,
I've
we're
been
live.
screaming at you. I've been screaming. Where have you been?
I was fixing my cell phone so that it wouldn't interrupt us today. We're live. It is August 14th. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen, so I was watching the chat. I thought you were going to be late, and you were on time.
Yeah, maybe interrupted periodically during this.
Okay.
Hello, folks. Today, not a lot has changed except the stock market. Stock market is tanking. I think you'll see in the news what I told you yesterday about the three women. It seems as though that's starting to come out now. Three people that they're trying to find before something happens to them. If you have any questions, please get them in. I'm a little puny today. The heat is extreme, so it's kind of got me a little wheezy. So if you have any questions, get them in.
Hey, Larry, let me give you a little bit of feedback first. We have a pastor with us. He says he's been following you for years and sharing your information to his congregation.
Very good. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for being with us.
And a lot of our regulars are back today. And
very good.
I can't see how many are in the chat yet because I haven't taken care of getting that on with my cell phone, but we're going to do that now. The picture, the thumbnail that we're using today, I think came out of his Clinton Chronicles video. It's the one of you sitting in front of the fireplace with your that gun that's hanging above the fireplace.
Yeah, that's actually from the Revolution 2000 video. Actually, where that's from.
Okay, all right.
But anyway, back to the market. The market is down 700 and some odd points today. This is not pulling the plug crash that I have warned you is coming. This is mostly, this has to do with the situation with China and with Hong Kong. I got word this morning that China has moved military troops into position, and if they keep the rioting going, but word I got was that the rioting was somewhat backed off a little today. But if they keep it going, China fully intends to bring in their military or their security forces, which is their military, and they intend to put it down once and for all. China is not going to play around with Hong Kong. They have given Hong Kong more freedom and liberty than I would have ever dreamed they would have done. But one thing you always have to remember, and I know, we buy stuff from China. It looks like everything's hunky-dory with China. But remember, China is a communist nation. And being the solid communist nation that they are not one bit afraid of applying the hammer to shut down any problems. Now, I did find out that the media in China, I'm hearing some kind of noise. I have no idea what that is. The media in China is only playing one side of the story, oddly enough. And it is certainly not the version that Hong Kong wants portrayed. The only side people of China hear is the side that China wants them to hear. The reason I point that out is because that should seem vaguely familiar to what we have here in America. You only hear in the mainstream what the mainstream wants you to hear. You only hear what the Democrats want you to hear. You do not hear what conservatives want or need people to hear. And therein lies the problem. But you can see already, I think you all can understand, our judicial branch of government has completely gone to the socialist. It is run just like a socialist, communist judicial system. Presently, today, it's already that way. If they want to get you, they'll make up stuff if they have to get you. And you're going to be got. And there's nothing you can do about it in today's legal system. The media is nothing but a state-run media. The problem the media has, as long as there is a President Trump and an us, the state media doesn't totally control the state. Now, folks, that is communism. Don't you see it? Don't you see it already plaguing this nation? I heard someone this morning in a little clip that I was passing by, and I heard, and it was some lady, and she was talking about Bernie Sanders, who was going after, I believe, the Washington Post because they had picked on him. And Bernie Sanders was talking about the corporate media. And even he or she was pointing out what I have tried to point out for years. In the early 90s, there were probably 20 to 50 different media-owned operations in America. When Bill Clinton took office, soon after he took office, and during his administration, all of the media in this country was taken over and controlled by five companies, corporations. And that's where it is today. And of course, that's what Sanders is griping about. Now, isn't it odd that he would gripe about the media picking on him? Think about it. He's griping about the media picking on him. Joe Biden's people are complaining about the media picking on him because of his gaffes. Isn't that odd? Look what the media does to President Trump every single second of every day. And they want to complain. And I assure you, whichever one of the Democratic nominees or candidates becomes the nominee, it will all change. And the media, whether it's Bernie Sanders, it won't be Bernie Sanders, but if it's Joe Biden, or any of them, it won't matter. The media will prop them up and make them look like the greatest people that ever walked the face of the earth. Now, I want to, in a way, apologize to Rendy. Rendy yesterday made reference to something that she had seen, talking about wanting to make a change in our Supreme Court. What I thought was being talked about was the inevitable transformation if they win in 2020. What I have learned today, Rendy, is that there is talk, I do not know by whom, but there is talk about a need to restructure the Supreme Court. Now, here's what's funny about that. When the Supreme Court was strongly in the hands of liberal judges, nobody complained. But now, all of a sudden, that the Supreme Court, at least as it looks, is taking shape towards a more conservative court, all of a sudden now, it's got to be changed. You see, that's the way they work, y'all. That's the way this works. That's the way this attack, that's the way this coup works. It attacks every different piece of our lives and spins it around and turns it around to their favor. So as long as President Trump is president and the risk exists that if Ginsburg should be forced to retire, and she's holding on mightily, trying to keep from it, but should she be forced to retire, they fear President Trump gets to appoint another, hopefully conservative, Supreme Court justice. That's totally unacceptable. So they've got to do something to stop this. And of course, the way they see to stop it is to change the rules, like they do with everything. If they can't win, they will change the rules. Now, unless something has changed that I don't know about for all of you, I'm going to tell you this. The only way I know that they might be able to attempt to restructure the Supreme Court, and I don't know that it can be done without a constitutional amendment, so don't get me out in left field on this, but there might be a possibility they would try to do such a task through Congress. But I assure you, as long as President Trump is president, even if the Republicans exceed in the Senate and they were to pass such legislation, once again, I don't even know if they can, but if they did, one thing is for certain, President Trump would veto it. It will not happen. But I can tell you this, if President Trump loses in 2020, this is one of the functions of the transformation that will take place virtually immediately. As I have told you, if President Trump loses in 2020, I believe, and so do a lot of people that are smarter than I, that it would be hard to believe that President Trump, in this polarized electorate that we have today, that people would vote out Trump, but then turn around and vote for a Republican in the Senate. So likely as not, if President Trump loses, so too will the Senate. Then you would have the presidency, the Senate, and the House totally in control of the Democrats. And everything at that point, as I have forewarned you, and y'all maybe thought I was crazy, within 6 months to a year, we will be a complete socialist/communist country. It'll happen. And it'll happen that fast. And once again, let me say, they may not call us a communist country. They may not. They may call us anything they want to call us, but that's what we will be. And the changes will be fast. They will have to be fast. They will need to do it at lightning speed so that the people, the public, can't have time to react or respond. That's why I know it'll happen so fast, 6 months to a year. They're not going to let it piece by piece by piece drag out, because there is the chance that the population in general might wake up and see what's going on and maybe start protesting and start some kind of uprising. So what they've got to do once they get control of the helm, they have got to do all of these things fast before the people wake up.
Oops, you lost the sound, Larry. Uh-oh. What happened, Larry? All right, let me text him and let him know we lost him. We lost your sound. So I don't know what happened. All right, he went off. Hopefully he's going to dial back in. He said he might have several interruptions, so somebody may be calling back that he needs to talk to. I know he was on the phone before he came on with us. So, Nick, our only hope is not a bloody revolt. Look, the conservatives do not do bloody revolt, and they are going to start paying people to look like us and cause a bloody interaction with Antifa, for example. And we have got to sit back and hold tight and not. There we go.
All right. Do you have me? Do you have
Yeah,
me?
you're back. Yes,
Am I
sorry,
back?
Yes, you're back.
All right. Well, where I was at was the transformation has to take place because there's a word in Washington, D.C. that strikes fear in the heart of all globalist, globalist, socialist politicians, progressives in Washington, and that's called empowerment. Empowerment. And they cannot allow people to be empowered. And by that, I mean, you have the wherewithal to control your own lives. They can't allow that. They have to make you dependent on the government. They have to. And if you have money, if you have enough money on your own, you don't need the government. You won't do what the government demands. So they'll strip you of that money early. That's the quickest whip they will crack. If you don't believe me, ask other countries like Greece and others. They come in, they nationalize the banks, and if you've got $1 million in the bank, you will not have it as of that day. You won't. It'll be gone. Now, they're not going to tell you your $1 million is gone, once again, to stop any uprising from the people. But what they will do is they'll create some imaginary crisis, and then they will limit the amount of money you can take out of your bank, of your own funds, per week or per month. It will happen. It will happen. So you see, guys, there's a reason you should be scared. Pastor, there's a reason you should talk to your congregation. I don't need to tell you, Pastor, that God, our God, Lord Jesus Christ, is under attack. But when they take over, God will be gone. We will go back, essentially, I see it going back to the days, believe it or not, I don't know where it is, Mary Ellen, in the Bible, but there was a story or something in the Bible where, if you were a Christian, you were killed. So people had these fish that they wore, these little fishes looking logo things. Is that in the Bible or did I make that up?
That's historical tradition after the Bible was written, or at least it's not in the Bible, but yes, the symbol of the fish, it's called the ichthus. The letters of the word that spell out fish in Greek represent Jesus Christ, Son of God, our Savior. And people would use the sign of the fish as a way to communicate with one another that they were Christians.
Okay. Likely as not, Pastor, when they take full, complete control of the nation, it would not surprise me. This is my opinion. It would not surprise me to see them outlaw Christianity. Now, before you think I fell off the turnip truck, why do you think in China and other countries, why do you think in communist countries, they outlaw Christianity? You know, in China, they're going around and killing preachers and destroying churches. Today they're doing it. You see, under communist rule, under socialist rule, there can be no other God than the government. There can't be. It's not allowed. It will not be allowed, and it will not be allowed here. Now, it may be approached differently in America than it has been in other countries that have gone through the transition, in that America is such a strong foundational Christian society. But they've got to do it. Somehow, some way, they have got to get people to worship government, not some higher authority. And Pastor, you need to tell your congregation that. And if they don't believe it, look at the efforts they have taken already. They have taken God out of schools. They've taken God out of buildings. I mean, anywhere there is a religious Christian symbol, one atheist, one, in a whole community of Christians, one atheist can drive by and file a complaint and down the symbol must go. That's hardly fair. That's hardly realistic in a democracy, in a representative republic. It's hardly believable, but you see it happening every day. Another thing that they will do, they will rewrite history. That's right. They will rewrite history. I remember very well, because of my involvement, Pol Pot in Cambodia. Pol Pot, when he took over, he went around and not only did he burn all the books, as did Hitler and has other tyrannical leaders, he burned all the books. That's right. Removing all history from written history. It didn't exist. But then he went around, and if you could read, if you could write, he murdered you. You see, they have to get rid of the real history. And the only history that's allowed to stand is the history they come up with that benefits them. Now, once again, if you think I'm a little bit off, maybe going a little bit too far, I simply remind you to look presently, already today. Look what they're doing to our historical monuments. They're going around and they're pulling down monuments left and right. Originally, they pulled down, of course, Civil War monuments, monuments that were connected to Confederate generals, etc. Now, they're taking down anything of Jefferson, Washington. Where is it now? There's some place, I guess, out in California where there's a mural on the wall that shows George Washington, but it also depicts, in that day, realistically, slaves. So they're, instead of taking it down, the cowards just covered it up. They didn't take it down for fear of outrage, but they did okay to cover it up. So getting rid of history is going on today. I would also ask any of you, look at the history books that our kids read today, or that they learn from today. And you know what's significant? Those history books don't read and tell what we learned when we were growing up. They're already rewriting history. They're already changing. And the other thing that will take place is they will change our culture. That's right. They will change our culture. I don't guess I need to tell you much about that. You should be seeing that today. You know, I don't know how many LBDTGs and Fs that there are out there in this country. The ones that don't know which sex they are, I don't know how many there are. But there's not probably enough that even make up 1% of the population. There's probably not. But look how they have got entire communities, our schools, everybody, redesigning bathrooms, redesigning text, redesigning what teachers can say to the students. They can't even say boys and girls. That's changing your culture. Today, the homosexual queer community, if you were to believe the power they have, you would think they're pushing somewhere between 40 to 50% of the population. And I do hope that's not true. I don't believe it's anywhere near true. But look at the power. Look at the power they have to change our culture.
Larry, last weekend, there was a band camp in Ohio. There was a girl who self-identified as a boy, and they put her in the boys' cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And no churches in the area of that town was having anything to say about any of it. And nobody was protesting whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's another thing. There's another good one. Pastor, this excludes you. Please, forgive me. But you are not included. But when they came out with the 501c3 law, they changed churches. Now, my friend, Pastor Ernie Sanders, calls modern day churches, I think he says, apostate churches. They don't worship the Bible. They don't talk about the things that the Bible talks about, only the things that are acceptable to the congregation. Why? So they can have a big congregation and they can have a big bunch of money put in the drum when the drums passed around the church. That's one of the major failings in this country today. Do you realize if the church was anywhere near what it was 30 years ago, if foundationally it truly was, if the preachers were what they're supposed to be, the massive audience and the massive force that they would have could change this country in a second.
Guess what, Larry? Pastor David's church is not 501c3. Guess
right.
We could have guessed that, but it's nice to hear that
right.
information. Yep.
Well, one thing Pastor Sanders and these pastors you're talking about proved, you know, they made pastors believe you've got to be a 501c3. If you don't, you lose your tax exempt status, et cetera, et cetera. That's not true. It was all a scam from the very beginning. But you had a culture of a new breed of preacher, a preacher that's more concerned about the size of his congregation and the money that it brings in and the money he makes or she makes. That's what it's all about. You'll notice most churches you go to, they don't talk about the sin of sodomy, being a queer. They don't talk about it. You know why? Because that would offend people in the congregation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So my question would be to all the preachers, well, if you're not going to talk about sodomy, if you can't talk about that, what other of God's laws do you want to do away with? Because all of a sudden now we're doing away and rewriting the Bible. We're rewriting God's laws. See, that don't work. But that's going on today. So when you think that the inevitable destruction, if they take over in 2020, the inevitable destruction of Christianity is far-fetched, please just wake up and look. It's not as far-fetched as you believe. And I assure you, if tomorrow the federal government said to all these preachers, these apostate preachers, fake preachers, whatever you want to call them, if they said, look, you can talk about good and evil, but you don't talk about God, you'd be amazed. I guarantee you, folks, how many of them would drop the word of God and Jesus Christ. They'd take it out. They'd claim, hey, it's not me, I got it. And if you think everything I have just told you is a far-fetched, crazy guy's nightmarish vision, if that's what you think, I don't blame you. I just really don't blame you. But I would caution you this. Take California, take Los Angeles, take San Francisco, take Chicago, take Baltimore. These are samples of communities and states that have been totally run by Democrats, under the total absolute control of Democrats for years. And just know that that is a micro picture of what would be the macro picture if they take over all three branches of our government. Think about it. Don't believe me. Look at those places yourself. Do it yourself, for yourself. That's what happens when the progressive Democrats, who are going by the title of Democrats, but they are actually socialists / communists. That's what we look like when they take control of all three branches of government. The executive, legislative, and judicial. They already have the judicial branch. You see that in the actions every day. You can see already they have half the legislative branch in that they've got control of the House. So you see, it's not that far to believe that if they get the presidency, the executive branch, so too will the rest of the legislative branch fall. Now, I'm sorry I have lectured y'all, but I have tried to give you things in this program today that I wish you could remember, would remember, want to remember, and would use it as you talk to people in the soft base of President Trump. Because the story I told you today is true. It's all true. Maybe it's shaded by my opinion in places, but I don't think many of you listening to me now would argue that much, even in the areas where I gave my opinion. But these are all points that we must start bringing forward to the soft base of President Trump. They have to feel the necessity for them coming out and voting. Now, this weekend, I have been forewarned, somebody mentioned it yesterday, I believe, Portland, I don't know this to be a fact, but Portland may be one of the flashpoints that George Soros has set up. A flashpoint where so-called Trumpers, mega people, conservatives get violent against Antifa people. And let me assure you folks, the conservatives, the Trumpers, the megas, whatever you want to call them, that get violent against the Antifa people will not be Trumpers, mega, and conservative people. They will be paid anarchists by George Soros, designed to look like us, talk like us, but to incite violence. That's all they need. That's all they're waiting for. And they've waited and waited, as I'm told, until they're tired of waiting. Now they want it to happen. They want it to happen now in the hot days of August, because as most of you know, the hot days of August in some of the major cities and the ghettos, etc., that's when you have the highest potential for a flashpoint where people go nuts and riot and go crazy. So if you're in Portland, I would suggest don't go. Don't go. And if it turns out to be that flashpoint I'm telling you about, don't believe it. And tell people. And the best way you can protect people from falling for any kind of staged rioting that may occur is by telling people ahead of time. Tell them. You don't know that it will be, but that there is a plan. There is a plan by Soros. Now they're going to say, where did you hear that? Unfortunately, on this point, you're going to have to say you heard it from me. But what I would ask you to do when you say you heard it from me, you need to maybe tell them that you've heard a lot of stuff from me that usually turns out to be true. And I'm saying that this may be a flashpoint. So if you can forewarn people when it happens, if it happens, we've kind of protected ourselves some. Now with that, Marion, have we got any questions? I've tied up too much of the program.
Well, we had a couple people asking about Epstein again, whether he was dead. There have been a lot of comments, but I haven't seen any actual questions. Rindy, I think you came in late. Larry apologized for not understanding what you had said yesterday about the Supreme Court. I saw the article that she had referred to, and it said that the Supreme Court has to heal, but they had spelled it H-E-A-L, which indicates getting better. And I think what they meant was H-E-E-L, healing, like you expect a dog to obey you. And I think that misspelling made it very confusing what they were really talking about.
Well, Rindy, what I've said, in fact, was that there is talk of trying to restructure the Supreme Court. And the reason is because, obviously, they're afraid President Trump, if he gets one more Supreme Court justice appointment, that the court will be too heavily conservative, and therefore they think we need to change the rules, because when the court was liberal, they didn't have a problem. But when the court runs the risk of being conservative, they need to change the rules. Now, let me say this about the Supreme Court. It has run awry for many, many years. The whole point of Supreme Court justices, and for that matter, federal judges, to get lifetime appointments was so that you could stop any political leaning from having an effect. The Supreme Court justices should not be biased towards any conservative or liberal purpose or principle. They shouldn't be. They should be strictly interpreting, looking at the Constitution and valuing whatever's brought against it with the Constitution as it's written. They are not supposed to do interpreting as they do today, which they turn around if the Constitution says, see the cat run. Today, they'll come up and say, well, they said the Constitution says, see the cat run, but what it really meant was the dog jumped over the moon. And they change to fit whatever application they need. And that's what happens when you contaminate the Supreme Court with political bias one way or the other. So I'm not denying the Supreme Court is broken. I'm not. It should not be conservative and it should not be liberal, but it is. And we are safer. If it's going to be biased, we are safer if it is bent towards conservative values, more so than communist socialist values. So there. Any questions? Anybody have a question?
There's one question. Just before we started, I saw the title of an article saying that Barr had secretly visited Epstein before he died. And so there is a question on that. Did Barr meet Epstein before he died?
Yes. I'm not supposed to tell you, but yes, he did.
Okay.
But it was way in advance of his death. Way in advance. It was not immediate. And to all the people still asking, Epstein, I just got off about an hour-long call. Epstein is dead. He's not in a federal witness protection program. They didn't ship him out. They didn't, he's dead. The question is, did he kill himself or did somebody kill him? Or did they have him killed? Now remember, they could have him killed, something maybe you didn't know. If a man is suicidal and you know he's suicidal and you facilitate him completing his own death, if you facilitated that, that is an accomplice to murder. So I would look for a strategy coming from Barr to where they go after the two guards that supposedly, quote unquote, went to sleep and then faked and falsified their reports to show that they did go in and check him every 30 minutes when they had not checked him for several hours. Ordinarily, I am told, don't know this for a fact, but I'm told by very, very, very credible sources that ordinarily in a case where guards would falsify records for not doing what they were supposed to do, they generally get a slap on the hand, maybe get a couple of days off without pay or something to that order. But in this case, these two guys are going to be prosecuted to the hilt. Falsifying a federal document is a federal offense. Subject to, I think it's 20 years in prison. Mandatory time. So that means no negotiating the time. So those guys are going to be in a situation where they are either going to get whacked or they may indeed talk. And we may learn more. But those two guys are very much in the hot seat right now. And I guess maybe I shouldn't tell you that, but let's put it this way, that's my opinion. But it is an educated opinion. Anybody else have a question?
Here's a question. How can we get a Medal of Freedom? He said, my grandfather is a 94-year-old World War II veteran who started serving this country at 18, dropping depth charges on German U-boats. He's still serving 76 years and counting. He deserves a Presidential Medal of Freedom. How can we make this happen?
I don't know that we can, to be honest. Although I'm very proud of your grandfather, and I salute him in every way that I can. But I would say there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people from that generation, all that deserve that medal. They truly are the greatest generation. Great in not only the things that they did to stop the spread of Hitler and Japan and all of that. Yes, that's significant. They made tremendous sacrifices, both the men in the combat and the women here at home. They did. But what makes them, to me, the greatest generation is they've never lost that love for this country. They've never lost that willingness to serve. So yes, your grandfather deserves that medal, but so do many, many more. And I wish they all would get it, but I don't think there's nothing I can do or we can do to prompt, I believe, the president into doing such a thing. That's kind of handled by a staff of people, and then the recommendations are made from that staff to the president. And just so that you know, folks, the president is isolated from requests like that. Not just President Trump, but all presidents are, so that they're not put in a precarious situation, of having to offend someone. So all requests like that have to go through channels, and the channels are there anyway. So there's not a way. I mean, you can't pick up the phone, call the president and say, do me a favor. It just doesn't work that way. What else?
I may be missing some of the questions, but what is the likelihood after Trump's re-election that the left plans massive riots nationally to force instituting martial law?
Well, the left is not going to want martial law under President Trump. They're not going to want that. If we are forced into FEMA provisional government, then they will have handed full power, total power to President Trump. And I assure you, they want no part of that.
What if
that will not be the way they respond to victory from President Trump in 2020?
Which is probably why there haven't been as many riots as we had expected in the last year or two.
Could possibly be it. But they don't feel that they've needed the riots. Look, they're working their plan. They are working their plan, and systematically they are succeeding. They're not going to change. If Trump wins in 2020, they've got plans for that, I fear.
Do you think there will be any Jade Helm-like events this year or next?
Any what?
Events like Jade Helm.
Jade Helm.
Jade Helm, that was that military thing that happened in Texas in 2015.
Oh, see, I don't know that actually even happened. I know a lot of people think it did. Alex thinks it did. But I talked, for example, to the director or whatever he was called at the time. I can't remember. I actually talked to the head of the airport where supposedly the military had come and done all this stuff and they hadn't. So I don't know. I don't know that happened.
Do you know if Assange is dead?
What?
Is Assange dead?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't know. He's not on my list of people that I keep track of. Maybe I'm wrong for not doing that, but I believe if he were, I would know about it. I really do.
Why was
And one other thing about the Jade Helm thing, guys. President Trump is president now, and President Trump has the full loyalty and support of the military, and he has, for all practical purposes, just about removed all treasonous traitor generals that were in place. So I'm not concerned today of any secret military operations designed to set the stage for a takeover of America. I'm not. That's over. With Trump president, that is blocked. Believe me, that is blocked. It doesn't mean they're not going to take over the country. They're working their plan, and their plan is working for them. But that part of stuff won't happen.
Teresa wants to know why Ollie North was a spokesperson for the NRA for only a short time. Why'd they move him on out of there?
Teresa, I don't know, but I do not have, because of my affiliation with the Contras and the things that I know relative to that, you know, I don't have necessarily the high esteem for Ollie North that has been his public persona. And I don't know. I don't know why they moved him on or why he decided to leave. I just don't know.
Folks, did I skip a question? I'm trying to go up. Why is it the LGBT movement that molested thousands of young males posing as Catholic priests are celebrated in every city while the Catholic Church gets hammered worldwide?
You know, that is a mystery to me. I understand, I guess, the clergy for the Catholic Church, the Pope and all of his minions. You know, I understand they've got something they've got to cover up, whatever. But it seems to continue and just be ongoing, and they don't, you know, if they do anything to these people that get caught, they just simply move them to another place or whatever. What I am upset about is the Catholic population. Why? The population of Catholics in this country do not rise up and demand change. And I'm talking about serious change, not just moving people. I mean, there ought to be some form of investigation within the church and find all of these sick people, find them, and get rid of them, punish them. They have destroyed thousands of young lives, destroyed them. But it has to come from the people within the Catholic community. We've seen that it's not going to come from the Pope and his guys. It's just not going to happen. Now, I'd like to ask y'all a question, if you'd answer it right quick, any of you that can. Did today's program, like the first 30 minutes, did it help you or did it bore you to tears? I would really like to know.
Okay.
I worry about that. I worry about it. Yes, ma'am.
While I'm waiting for their answers, the next question is, do you know of any attempts to kill President Trump that have been thwarted? And do you have confidence in the Secret Service?
If I did know, and I don't, I wouldn't tell you. And President Trump has maintained triple canopy as sort of a double blind security team in addition to the Secret Service. And originally it caused some trouble with the Secret Service. But President Trump is very well protected as of now, right now. He is well protected. Does that mean he cannot be assassinated? No, it does not.
All right.
With weapons and technology that exists today, you know, when he's outside speaking at an event or whatever, somebody can be a mile away and still be able to kill him. So, I mean, he is very much at risk, very, very much at risk. And if he wins in 2020, there are only two options. There's not a third. And one of the two options is to kill him. And they know if they kill President Trump, then it goes to Vice President Pence, and we are back with the deep state in control again.
Yeah. Okay, you asked, is this helpful? So here are the comments. Interesting as usual. It helps, Larry. We truly appreciate you. It helps. Helped. I have the greatest respect for you and your knowledge. Really helpful. We come here to be informed, not entertained. Thanks, Larry. Great info, Larry. I think you help, especially younger in the audience. People want to hear you talk. It helped. I love this program. It was superb, Mr. Nichols. Oh, that's a great question. Rock on, Larry. Trump 2020.
Okay. Thank you. Look, guys, I worry about stuff like that. I don't want you to come here and feel like I'm a know-it-all and lecturing you. So just know I'm very worried about doing that. But sometimes I just feel compelled. I don't know why. Sometimes I feel compelled to give you the background that maybe we don't talk about enough.
Look, it's very helpful, Larry. Here's another question. Somebody had texted this to me. Sharon had asked me earlier today to ask you, and I forgot. Is Turkey playing both sides by taking Russia's S-400 missile system and opening up their Incirlik air base to the Russians as well as to us? This used to be our strategic air base for NATO.
Turkey has been in the process of betraying us ever since we invaded Iraq, when they refused to let our airborne launch from their base, making them have to go into Saudi Arabia and then literally walk across Iraq. Since that time, Turkey has not been, I repeat, has not been a trusted ally to America. Are they playing both sides against the middle? Probably, maybe more or less a little than Pakistan, but Turkey and Pakistan both are walking the line, trying to benefit from everybody. I hope that was an answer.
Yeah. It says, I absolutely value your opinion the most. Thank you. Thank you. Always helpful. We appreciate everything. This is not boring. Are you kidding? This is like a crime.
Well, guys, the reason I'm concerned about that is because it's very important to me for y'all to be able to do the job before you, the job you've got to do, which is find and interact, engage the soft base. I want y'all to do it yourself. You know, I don't want you coming and believing what I say. See, that drives me crazy when people listen to Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh tells his audience, and his audience just believes everything Rush Limbaugh says. And Rush tries, I'm sure, in good faith. But he can be wrong, just as I can. So I don't think it's healthy for us ever again, to get in the position to where we let anybody do our thinking for us. We should never do that again.
Do you think we can we trust Putin with his ties to China and North Korea?
No. No.
And what do you think?
The answer to Putin is simple. You can never trust a communist. You can't. And then his connection to the KGB, it's not just a corny saying. Once KGB, always KGB. Once KGB, you're always. The social engineering, the brainwashing that goes in to the training to make you KGB, you never get out of that. Never. And the same holds true. You don't trust the communist and you don't trust a Muslim. Don't not trust a Muslim because of what I say or anybody else says. Be concerned about a follower of Islam because of the Quran itself and what it tells them they must do.
Do you think the Chinese will execute the Hong Kong citizens?
If they want to, they will. And if they do, maybe President Trump and others may gripe about it, but there will be nothing anybody can do about China. And they know it.
They did
Look,
it.
China does not suffer from the same political pressures that politicians in America do. Just like I told you, if they execute every one of the protesters in Hong Kong, the population of China that might object to it, fiercely object to it, they'll never hear about it. They'll never hear. As far as other countries, China doesn't give a hoot and a flip what America or anybody else thinks about them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the good thing about President Trump. That's what President Trump has brought to America again. We finally have a president that cares about us first. He doesn't care about China. His concerns relative to China are simply as it applies to affecting us. He doesn't care about China. And the good news is that's the way he should be because China don't care about us.
Pastor's asking about Hillary being a witch and going to a coven in California. Is
all
that
I can tell you, Pastor?
Larry, wait a minute. Let me finish the question. He's wondering about connections to child trafficking and her involvement with that.
All right. My answer to the which question is what I personally did and saw. I had to take money from ADFA's fund, place I work, the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, and facilitate Hillary going to California, where she said, and Bill told me, that she was going to meet with Linda Bloodworth Thomason, the wife of famous producer in that day of Harry Thomason, and they would go out there to a witch's church. And I was forced, when I told Bill she better quit doing that, because anybody finds out in the deep South, that'd be the end of politics. He told me, well, I'm not going to say anything. You got to tell her. So I had to tell Hillary. And her answer to me was basically, you know, get out of my life, don't worry about it. But she did say, look, I'm covering both bases. So that's true. Now, her connection to pedophilia, I've heard all about it, but I never witnessed it. I never witnessed anything directly that I was not connected with, because I would have never been connected with it. But I never even heard any proof that that happened. So, no, I can't answer that question.
I appreciate what the last person just said. Share these videos and get the word out. It's really important, folks, that you hit the like button. It's really important that you share. And guess what, Larry? We got up to 111 people watching today.
Right?
That's growing, and we need to keep this growing because we've got to hit 50,000.
Yeah, Pastor, I wish you would know that one thing you could do to help us tremendously, and I don't know if it would be appropriate, so if it's not, please forgive me for even bringing it up. But if it could be considered appropriate, it would help if you would invite your congregation to come. I don't think I will ever do anything to offend you or your congregation. I may say things they don't necessarily want to hear, but it will be my attempt to explain the truth as it is, as I know it. But that would be tremendously helpful, Pastor, for all of you. Invite anyone you can, because as Mary Ellen just said, we've got to grow an army, and we've got to get there pretty quick.
Ooh, we're up to 118. Yay. So they're coming on late, Larry, maybe after work.
Well, now, do I understand with this format, can people listen to a recording of it later, or is this it?
No, they can listen later. That's why we had 800 people that watched it last night. Watched Mondays. As of last night, we had 800 views of Monday's show. We had a question about getting 28 Years to Nowhere, your autobiography. If you send a text to 240-499-6729, I can tell you how to do that. That's 240-499-6729. Text message with that, not phone call. You can
by the way, I think last I talked to Mark, I think we are 4. There's only 4 shirts left to be ordered to make an order. We have to get so many to make an order. So we need 4 people to, if you want it, if you want the
Never Socialism
shirt, then 4 people need to let us know fairly promptly, please.
Now you can get the book and the shirt and the Never Socialism bumper stickers at the website, nicholslive.com. So there's a link to order everything right there at nicholslive.com. There's also the link if you want to help Larry out. So he's promised not to do fundraising anymore. So that's as much as we'll say about it. But please remember, the need is there every day.
Indeed. Anybody else have a question before we go? I don't like to leave anybody unattended to.
Well, just to thank you, Larry. Much respect for your knowledge and truth and opinion.
Well, thank you. And thank you all, from Mary Ellen and I and all of the people that help us stay here, thank you. And you all hold a special place with us, because I know how hard it is to go against the grain. I know how hard it is to want to tell people the truth when people really don't want to be bothered with it.
And if you're doing anything to help spread the word and would like to have a chance to share what you're doing and what your experience has been with that, we have a conference call at 8 Central, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. If you'd like to get on the call, the phone number is 712-451-0725. The access code is 492-215#. That is in the description under the video. So you can just always come back to the video, or it's also on nicholslive.com. And you're welcome to come. And we would love to hear what you're doing to share what your experience has been using the t-shirt, getting a reaction, talking to people about the things you hear here from Larry, what people say when you share the video on social media. So we'd love to have you join the call and let us know what you're doing and the reactions you're getting from it.
Yes, and I would like to say, I can't make a promise, but tomorrow I hope to be able to give you a little more information about the goings on with Comey and the people involved in the coup. I can't swear that I'll be allowed to do it, but there is a chance. Things are going on. Don't think that is not going on as we speak. And remember, right now, the media is just going left and right. And so just because you're not seeing something focused with the media does not mean that nothing's happening. That's not true. Things are going on. And to my knowledge, Starr and Durham are doing their job, doing it very well. With that,
Starr or Barr?
Barr, I'm sorry.
Well, the reason I asked is because we've seen Starr on the news lately, so giving his opinion.
Well, yes. With that, I want to say, see you tomorrow, I hope.
Yeah, and if Larry can bring us information like that, you might want to invite some friends to listen tomorrow. Thanks for being here. God bless you all. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.